So the Banlist dropped a few hours/days ago, and we're gonna do our analysis on the Banlist. It was a quite straightforward one, and you will see why. I didn't release a Banlist prediction video, so if you don't believe my predictions, that's your right, but I have no reason to lie. So let's begin with what happened. I expected hits to Tachyon and Shira, and due to one hit I expected DDD Savant Thomas to get unlimited. What happened? So for Tachyon, I expected a skill nerf where I said they will do the first effect happen only once per duel. I also predicted Tachyon Transmigration and GN Trainer are going to go to limited one status because I thought that GN Trainer was the most impactful limit one you could have alongside the counter trap. And I predicted a limit 3 on either Spiral Dragon or Schwarzschild Limit Dragon because they are the two dark unsearchable dragons. Konami pretty much did the majority of the things I and most people I think expected. They limited Transmigration to 1, they limited GN Trainer also to 1, and they limited Spiral to 3. However, they also limited to 1 the two main cards that enable the FTK, the Vengeful Servant Equip Spell and Sheehan Spy, so that the FTK is now dead. However, you can still do it with Galaxy Wave, which is really funny. It's way less consistent now, way less consistent, but it's still really funny. I don't know if I am satisfied. Like, Tachyon is losing a lot by this. It loses limited 3 cards, and it was a deck that heavily benefited from the existence of limited 3 cards. It also lost its 2 main Xyz plays alongside the Tachyon trap because you were either making GN Trainer or Felgrant. You also made Dragluon in the mirror match. You can still do that, but the mirror match is not going to be so prevalent now, I believe. So what is still left? Like, you can still make Sanafond, Zombiestein, and you can make turn 1 Dingirsu and theoretically pair it with some back row like Needle Sealing and stuff. All of these options are far worse, of course, than GN Trainer and to an extent Felgrant. So that's a very big nerf for the deck. I don't think it's enough to push it out of the meta though. I think that even with my skill nerf, we would get a deck that would be tier 3/tier 2. And I think we would be fine with that because we were in a Dragon Ruler/Spellbook type of format. The limitation of the FTK cards is something that makes me personally happy. The FTK wasn't at all popular, but it's always nice seeing Konami banning these degenerate decks because nobody wants to play against an FTK. Moving on to the deck that had actually the most tops in the KC, it's Shiranui. What I predicted was a limitation to 3 on Shiranui Solitaire, which happened, and 2 limit 1s, 1 on Spectral Short Shade and 1 on Samsara. Konami limited Spirit Buster to 1 instead, which I find really stupid. This was actually, we were all like, in the Greek community, we were all like almost certain that Solitaire would get hit to 3, but we didn't know what would get limited to 1. Someone even suggested that Shade would get limited to 3 alongside Solitaire, and I think that would be better than what they did. Spirit Master to 1 literally does nothing. There are even people who prefer to play Econ at the moment. It's such a bad hit, and I don't understand why. Samsara is also a card that, the way Shira works, it's starting to become really toxic. I'm not saying it's brokenly broken, but it's a really toxic card. And I expected Konami to address it. The issue is the majority of the Eastern community didn't include Samsara in their KC Cup lists, whereas everyone in Europe, in European communities, did play one copy of Samsara. Not trying to be racist, there was just a different approach. Also, the Asian community played 2 copies of Parsec in the majority of the lists, whereas we in the European community played 1. These are small differences in the list, but the Samsara is quite a big difference. And since Konami didn't see Samsara being a staple in every Shiranui deck, they thought that it wouldn't be any pack for Limit 1. They saw Spirit Master in every list and they limited it to 1 because it's a rare. Even Shade to 1 would be better. It's a very bad hit. Solitaire to 3 is fine. The problem is they can still play Beatrice, which I find disgusting. Beatrice, in my opinion, is an Xyz that should be banned, but that will not happen because Burning Abyss is a deck and they will not ban the boss of an archetype. Duel Links rarely bans cards, but if there is a card at the moment in the game that one would argue should get banned, that is 100% Beatrice. What do these hits do to Shira? Nothing. They do nothing. They can't play Mindcon, and they lose 1 copy of Solitaire for Beatrice, or they lose Beatrice if they don't want to play it. Their turn 1 setups are exactly the same. The text they play, or they can choose to play, have changed. But Shiranui was a deck that you could play 20, 25, 30 cards. The skill is basically so broken, it allowed you to do whatever the fuck you wanted. And I didn't predict that the skill would get hit, but it absolutely must get hit in the future ban list, skill ban list, if they plan to introduce one. It's such a toxic deck. Its mirror is also awful. And trust me, we don't want a tier 0 format where the mirror is so terrible. But these were the decks. We're not gonna analyze the unlimits. Yes, I know Thomas was limited to 2 and not unlimited. Don't start hating on me. I basically said that this would get unlimited if they hit Giant Trainer, which I thought they would do. They did, and they put Thomas to 2. They are kinda scared with Thomas. DTD is always that deck that when there is an archetype that loses to a card, we're all like, oh, we're gonna play this deck and draw it with Giant Trainer, and trading also enhances this thought. I think DTD is kinda past its prime. It's a fun deck. It's quite degen going second, but I think it's kinda past its prime. Like the whole turbo Z-specific tech thing, I don't think it's really working now anymore. And this deck going second is not always that good now anymore. Because, let's say you play against Tachyon, the counter trap is baitable, but it's not as much as you think. Anyway, that's for Thomas. DDD will be experimented with in the meta because it can dig into cards like Lancia that counter Shiranui, and people are already in the hive mind that Shira best deck baby. And yeah, but I think they will give up on it afterwards. Now moving on to the actual unlimits, we have Evil Sword Ophiol. I don't think there's nothing to say about this. Evil Sword can play a second copy of it. This card is not good, but we don't want it to be good. Thankfully, this deck turned out to be a huge flop, and it's still gonna stay a flop. The problem is not the inaccessibility to multiple Ophions or no limited ones. It's that the cards are bad. They're so bad. The next limited 3 unlimited card, however, is kinda scary. Condemned Witch is a scary card. The issue is your deck needs to not use a normal summon. I mean, Starry Night can use this to get access to their fairies and search a back row, but Starry Night is kinda dog shit. So, and I don't think that having Witch saves it. They also prefer to play hand traps rather than limited 3s in the first place. The deck that is looking at Condemned Witch and is like, yo, this is kinda saucy, is BLS. Uh, this card straight up replaces Endymion as a utility normal summon. It doesn't draw one. It's a strict +1 though, so I mean you can search a back row or a board breaking card. So you can search either lands, you can search Chalice or Droplet, you can even search Scripture if you want to, but I don't think that will happen. And basically that's it. It's a board breaking tool, it's a card that gets you a back row. It's also a way to access the Paragon. I don't know if we will play this in BLS, you can play it, but I don't know if it will be played. You can also search Forbidden Dress, by the way, to protect the Paragon from getting destroyed by its effect. I forgot to say that. So that's it. BLS is kinda looking scary with Condemned Witch being a card. It doesn't offer the draw one consistency Endymion did turn 1, so maybe the lists need to be refigured a bit more, maybe play an extra copy of a ritual, who knows, and play like more than 20, like 21, 22. I don't think I will be the one who will try to solve this. There are a lot of BLS fanboys out there, they can try it. The next unlimited is Cosmotown. It's an unlimited that's looking scary if you look at it, and it for sure helps, but I don't think it's gonna change a lot in the metagame. Cosmos' problem is consistency. Like, there are decks that if you give them limited 3s, they simply are much better. But like decks like Live Twin, for example, not Live Twin actually, decks like Constellar are like that. And Cosmo, it's not the problem it didn't have a lot of good back row. The problem was it's inconsistent as fuck. That was its problem. The ability to run limited 3s helps, but I don't know if it's what will solve Cosmo. But we can ask Genkai Code. They are the biggest Cosmo copers we have in the community at the moment. They can help us with that. The next two unlimits are of old meta relevant cards. The first one is Mekk-Knight Blue Sky. Blue Sky was at 2, but Mekk-Knights weren't playing limited 2 cards. So I don't know what this changes for pure Mekk-Knights. I think nothing. They played 2 Blue Sky anyway. And the normal summons that like give a card to your opponent which make Blue Sky a starter are not available anymore. Iblis is limited to 3, and the Assault package got a skill change so that they would push Iblis. Basically that's the problem, like Memory, Purple and Iblis are limited to 3, so you can run limited 3s, which is fine for Mekk-Knights. They don't really need limited 3s, but the problem is they don't have access to Iblis and they don't have multiple copies of Purple because the deck wants to see Purple. It wants to play. It plays it wants to play 3 Memory. It wants to play 3 Purple. It could play 2 Memory, 1 Blue Sky, 3 Purple. It wasn't such a big hit in the beginning, but it's way more impactful if you limit Purple and Memory, because you have half the copies of the starter you have in the first place. This also makes Mech Talker a thing because Debug also got unlimited. I think Mech Talker is a deck of the past. It's worse, I think, than Salad Talker, even though it has a bit of a higher ceiling due to Mekk-Knights being very strong going second tools. But I don't think Mech Talker will be that relevant. And speaking of Mech Talker, final unlimit was Debug. This is fun. It's cool. It helps obviously the pure Cyburst decks a lot. They want that third Debug. You don't always want to play 3 mining because in 20 card decks sometimes you're gonna draw multiple minings, and even if you like say, oh, I can discard the second, that's not like an argument. somebody would argue, oh, Salad is getting boosted. Salad isn't playing debug. Hawa basically just showed everyone how to play Salad, and we kind of haven't shifted from that, which kind of has been Salad's downfall, let's be honest. I mean, Salamangreat is a deck that kind of relied on Darkhold. Darkhold has been terrible for the last 2 months or so. Also, the best decks kinda don't lose to Salad. Basically, Salad's problem is that it doesn't generate enough advantage with the cards it currently has. It needs Spinny, it needs Stalio. I would say it even needs Roar and Rage, but people will get really angry if I say to bring these cards, because we had Salad tier 0 and I don't think they want it again, even if it was arguably one of the top formats in Duel Links history. But yeah, debug isn't really being played in Salad, and I don't think even if you played it you would play 3 copies unless you wanted to turbo Dweller. But Dweller is in a weird spot. Like, you can Dweller Shira and you are most likely gonna win that game, but it's not. She doesn't really help you going second, and she's not the best normal going second. But anyway, I have analyzed debug enough to move on to what are my final conclusions about the metagame. It looks like Shiranui is tier 0. It has lost minimal things. And the question is, how can other decks stop it? They are way less powerful than Shiranui and way less consistent. Shiranui's skill is absurdly broken, and it basically pushes the deck to its high tier status. The second conclusion is about Tachyon. Tachyon is unironically viable. The question is, what are you gonna do to your turn 1 now? Like, you lose limit 3s, that hurts because Tachyon is a deck that wants to use limited 3 traps a lot, but it can't survive without them. The question is the Xyz you're gonna make turn 1 alongside the counter trap. Will it be Dingirsu? Will it be Zombiestein? Will it be Sanafont? It depends on how the meta evolves. For example, if Mayakashi becomes again tiered, Sanafont will see playing Tachyon because it's basically impossible for Mayakashi to play through it. Also, Dingirsu alongside Backrush with Needle Sealing is a thing Tachyon can do. I don't know if it is the best thing to do. You also have Dragluon to shut down opposing dragon decks, including the Mirror. There are options. Zombiestein needs a specific hand where you need access to one of the dragons, the dark dragons already, and you need to have another dragon in your hand, an extra dragon, so that you can get, because you need to get back Seyfert, which will be your discard fodder. I'm not saying this is gonna be optimal, but it is an option to have as a negate in case you open only engine. It's up to the community to experiment with Tachyon. There isn't a lot to experiment because the skill is so restrictive. And then the final question is about the January decks, mainly Constellar, Mayakashi, and Tenyi, and to an extent Live Twin. Live Twin so played in the KC because it has this coin flipping nature at an extremely alarming rate, and we all were wondering, how will Live Twin do? And people played Twins. It's also good because you can't summon Schwarzschild against them going second, and they got the results. But still, Constellar was considered to be a better deck. I think it's still a better deck. Live Twin was just better suited into the KC Cup. So, but the question is still, how can these decks rise again? Like, the truth is, whereas Shira got the most tops, Tachyon was the deck that gate kept the majority of the metagame, because there are decks that the counter trap ultimately beats, which is reasonable, and there are also a lot of decks that have issues with Felgrant, or that their turn 1 isn't good enough against Tachyon. For example, Tenyi. If you know your opponent is on Tenyi, and you will know that now with the archive skill update, then it becomes kinda tough because they're gonna make better boards against you. I mean, they can't make they cannot make Felgrand now against you, but still. Mayakashi is also interesting because it just looks like a worse zombie, but it still saw results. It's a good deck. And there are a lot of things to see because Shirano is a deck that has multiple counters. Lancia counters it really well. Crows, Skullmeister, everything that hits your tuner is annoying. I mean, there are still broken Shira hounds that can play through all those things, but still, it looks like Shira will be the best deck, but we need to see how will the old decks counter Shira / try to beat Shira, because it has more counters than Tachyon. Tachyon basically gatekept every other deck except for Shira because Shira is broken. So that's it for the video, guys. Have a nice day, everybody.